All right. Welcome to the Ultra High Net Worth Clients Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Broadhead. We started this podcast as a way to create a central resource of the best business owner growing tips shared by the most outstanding business owners in the industry, of which our guest today is definitely one. These outstanding owners agree to be on the show and provide a ton of value for free, all in the hopes that our audience might learn from their words. This episode is part of our Business Owner series and will offer insights into the needs, wants, and desires of this highly sought after client demographic. Today's incredible business owner that also has a very unique focus on ultra high net worth and high net worth clients is Bill Roth. Bill, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Chris, thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm a fan. I listen to them regularly, and it's a pleasure
Thank you.
to finally get a chance to join you and speak with your audience here. So, yeah, I'm a co-founder and CEO of a company called HardTarget. We're based in the western half of North America. My co-founder is in Vancouver, British Columbia, and I'm in North Idaho in a little resort town called Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And we have a growing team, but we specialize in cyber preparedness for ultra high net worth families and their advisors, is how we put it. And we do that in a very unique way, particularly through gameplay, because it's an ideal way to learn hard things. And I'd be happy to get more into that, but I don't know how much you want me to go into just yet.
Awesome. Yeah, that is, I am so intrigued to hear this combination of cybersecurity for ultra high net worth families using gamification. So can you talk about how you, I guess, came up with this idea or how you got
Sure.
into this cybersecurity industry?
Yeah, my pleasure. So, I've been an entrepreneur since the dot-com era. Back in '01, I hung out my shingle with my first creative agency and grew that for the next 10 years. And since the ensuing 20 plus years, I've built half a dozen companies. HardTarget is my seventh company. I've had a couple of exits. One of those was a gamified intermittent fasting company and a gamified intermittent fasting app. But I really view business as a game, and one that I strive to do honestly and ethically. Of course, lets people have their own ways to do things, but I think that it's the most fun game around, and especially when you do things right and you do them for the right reasons. And but I think that gameplay in particular can be a really useful way to help people take complex topics like cybersecurity and to begin developing what we call mental models for that. So I guess, the way that this really started was several years ago. Had an exit and I took a year off. We lived further north of where we are now at the time on a mountain in my childhood dream home. I grew up in a duplex in Des Moines, Iowa. I didn't come from money or anything, but worked hard and found ourselves out here in Idaho after 18 years in Denver. We moved up here, got a whole house full of kids, and we just wanted to slow life down for the family, and everything that was 2 hours away in Denver's in our backyard here in Idaho. So very fortunate to be able to kind of live our dream out like that. But I noticed in taking that year off, I had a lot more time at home. I was trying to write some children's books for my kids and doing some improv and just some fun stuff to sort of let my hair down a little bit. But we had a very wealthy neighbor, and I won't mention their name, but we'll just say top 100 wealthiest family in the United States, and I'll leave it at that. But this individual, just through my observation, I kind of recognized that she wasn't as privacy-minded as I would be in her situation, and that there were a lot of vulnerabilities. And part of how I think is somewhat of a protective mindset. I don't think you can have four daughters in this day and age without having that a little bit. I also have two sons, so I have six kids. But I've always had that mindset of defending those that are vulnerable, just growing up and dealing with bullies and things you deal with as a kid, just sort of always got under my skin. And I rather relished getting in between the threat and the person that was at some level of vulnerability. And so I noticed this about the way she lived her life, and just from a operational security standpoint and physical and overall security posture standpoint. And it got me thinking. I said, well, I wonder how many ultra high net worth people are this sort of unawares. And it got me curious, like any entrepreneur, I'd say. And that sent me down a road of privacy and really exploring just how much of our data is out there with data brokers. There are literally hundreds of data brokers gathering data on each and every one of us, unless we tell them not to. So that was one point, was the data privacy. The other part of it for me was kind of some current concerns I had about big tech and what they do with our data. And again, I won't name names. We all kind of know who's in the news and who's having to stand before Congress and such. But all those things sort of, I guess, bubbled up into this idea of a privacy / security sort of offering for wealthy, for those that have done well in life. Because the more research I did on it, the more I realized a few things. That number one, they're ultra high net worth in particular, and their family offices are the new favorite target for cyber criminals around the world. And the more of a digital footprint that family has, or that family office has, the greater their risk of being breached. And it is now happening. 26% of family offices have been cyber attacked just last year alone. That's a stat that comes from, is either Denton's recent report or JP Morgan's recent report on family offices, but it's a major problem. And we don't have direct details on, or stats on, the families that are being breached, because they're very private about it. I mean, once it happens, it's not the sort of thing you want to get out. It's oftentimes damaging to the family's reputation. So all of that really started to inform my understanding of a big problem that was just under the surface that people don't talk about, but is growing on a monthly basis. And at the time, I knew I didn't have the background. I mean, I've done a lot of really cool things in business, but I have a different perspective. And I wanted to find the right partner to pursue this idea with. And so I took my time, and through a mutual family office connection, finally found my world-class business partner, Anwar Vistram, who's in Vancouver, as I mentioned, and really one of the pioneers of high net worth cybersecurity consulting around. He's been at it for 12 years. Before that, he was the CISO, the Chief Security Officer, for the largest investment bank in Canada. So a lot of pedigree, a lot of deep experience, plus another 20 years, beyond what he's done in high net worth in the security space. So really has a clear understanding of the vulnerabilities and the challenges that families have at almost a visceral level, because he's been going into their homes and consulting them, what we call right of boom. So sort of paint a picture here for you. When there's an incident that's a boom in someone's life, there's a cyber attack, some kind of a breach, and right of boom is after it happens. And that's where you don't want to be, obviously. And that's where a lot of cybersecurity companies focus, is everything that happens to try to remediate and fix the problem and establish better security protocols moving forward. Anwar was really focusing left of boom and helping the families be preventative, to be prepared, and to walk with just more circumspection in their daily lives. But the reality is that security isn't something people really want to think about until there is an event. And I think that's part of what we're doing with HardTarget, is we're changing both the tone, the sort of fear-mongering tone in the industry, but also hopefully with a winsome approach that, hey, this can be a really dynamic and an interesting topic for you as a family. Plus, it's something you really can't ignore anymore. So all that to say, he and I have teamed up. I've been in the process for last year of taking everything he's done with these families for the last 12, 13 years and turning it into a war game. It's not really a term that we use a whole lot, but it's maybe the best, most succinct way to explain it. And it's not new. It's actually something that our governments and large corporations have been doing for decades. They do what they call red team, blue team, and that's really just like it sounds. It's one group of people on this side going against the other, and one side is the defender, the other side is the attacker, and they try to essentially simulate real world scenarios. What's interesting though is you'd think, oh, okay, cyber wargaming. That sounds like like a dark room with green screens, right? Everything's glowing, and there's some big command center. A lot of the wargaming is actually tabletop still, and the reason for that is when you get things off the screen and you get them out in front of you, your brain, your ability to comprehend and see patterns, all of that changes. It improves, and in studying the whole industry and studying these different ways of building intrinsic, knowledge of the topic, I realized that I think this might be the best way to train families too, because families aren't just mom and dad; their ages run the gamut, right? From the 10-year-old daughter who just got her first iPhone to grandma, who's, I think our oldest client is 91, right? So what is a solution for that breadth of human experience? And that's what, we get to do with HardTarget is take all this complexity and distill it into gameplay so that each member of the family can begin to be more aware and to be more hardened. So I can go a little bit more detail, but I don't know if you have a follow-up question, so I want to give you a window to do that.
Yeah, definitely. First, silly question: Are you a big Jean-Claude Van Damme fan?
I was back in the day, yeah, and he had a movie called Hard Target, and that's really the only other kind of quote brand out there. But what's interesting is the term is often used. If you listen to any number of cybersecurity podcasts, it's almost on every one. Everyone's
Mm-hmm.
it's the objective, even for corporates, even for governments. The term comes from the military principle of being harder to hit, right? Reducing your attack surface. And the reality is that ultra high net worth families and their advisors, by and large, are soft targets. They're easy marks. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why everything is shifting, because face it, like the bad actors are lazy, like a lot of us. And they're trying to get into the biggest money they can with the least amount of effort. And it's like any business. A lot of them are run like businesses, and talent costs more money. So if you want a real black hat hacker that can do a brute force attack or barge through the back door on something or through the front door of a corporation, they better be skilled. But what really actually works is what's called social engineering. And that's a fancy way of saying manipulation, right? And using human nature against itself so that you can accomplish specific means. And there's good aspects of social engineering too, but in this context, it's it's a real problem. It's anywhere between 90 to 98% are the estimates of how many cyber attacks are socially engineered.
Mm-hmm.
So
Can you share kind of the most common ways that these ultra high net worth families are targeted and successfully kind of breached?
it's a great question. And I think the problem is there is no common playbook. There are literally dozens of different types of social engineering. Some of the big ones are what you and I still get on our phones, is like smishing text, which is a phishing text that comes through, or a phishing ploy that comes through our phone via text. I got a really good one, well, good, a couple weeks ago. It made it look like, because I was expecting some deliveries from Amazon, and
Mm.
it looked like it was a text that appeared to be from my Amazon driver. And I thought, oh, maybe they're not finding the right place to put the package or whatever on the, get through the gate or whatever on the front door. And I almost clicked on it, and then boom, my hard target mindset kicked in. wait, what are you doing? Don't do that. Because what that can lead to is I click on that link, it can lead to malware being loaded onto my phone, um, and all sorts of bad outcomes beyond that. But um, my co-founder has many stories he can tell you. We never name names, obviously. It's all very private. We're even very careful about what specifics we share because honestly, we're not trying to give bad, these criminals any good ideas about how to access a family. But most of them are socially engineered. Most of them come through some kind of mistake that's been made. Um, Phishing, they say a billion phishing emails still get clicked every single day. As much as we all have awareness to not do it, it's a billion a day around the world. Um, and then you have large data breaches. I just saw another one yesterday. Someone sent me a link. Another 2.9 billion records, including social security numbers, and addresses and everything. And see, the real problem that most of us aren't fully aware of, but maybe we're doing a bit to help with that, is that there are real profiles on you and me in the dark on the dark web, and it's particularly with ultra high net worth families. They're marks, so they are being targeted. And the way it works is that these bad actors will spend 4, 5, 6 months just doing surveillance. Um, Years ago, back in 2011, Lockheed Martin came out with a sequence called the cyber kill chain, which is the steps that the hackers use to make entry or to breach a corporation. We're developing something very similar for high net worth families so that people can start to see, I'm in this situation because there's just too much out there about me. I need to start clawing some of that back. And that's part of how we help them. But um, there are literally dozens of ways. And that's why I felt like I have to make a game out of this because um, it's really the best way to develop a model in your mind about the bigger picture and not have to know exactly how to thwart every single attack that might be coming your way, but to really walk with a sense of awareness in your day to day. And again, if it can't just be mom and dad who started the original family business and have all the money, it's got to be their kids, their grandkids, aunts, uncles, cousins, and really what we call the whole family enterprise. Yeah, there's just so many bad outcomes that can happen. We see cyber kidnapping, which I think is a particularly ugly one because there's things that happen that become very emotional, and that's part of social engineering is to use people's emotions against them. So
Mhm. Well, so it sounds like you saw this problem and you it's not so much a technology thing as it is a human thing. So it sounds like you have a lot of experience with gamifying things. Is that accurate?
yes, that's a really good insight, and something that I neglected to say, but we say all the time that we take a human centered approach to ostensibly a technological problem, but really it's a human problem. For the majority of things that happen, they come through, um, again, just someone being manipulated to do something that they think is oftentimes they think is in their best interest, and someone gets between them and their financial advisor, their RIA, their wealth manager, and monies get moved fraudulently very quickly to an account here and then quickly extracted out of that account before anyone is the wiser. And sometimes, especially if the family's moving funds on a regular basis, sometimes it doesn't even get caught until weeks later we've seen. So, but in terms of, you know, the game side of things, gamification is a term that is used a lot for like online approaches to learning your CRM system or something like that, right? There's a lot of software companies, SaaS companies that will quote gamify their learnings and their onboarding process and such. And game mechanics, by and large, are transferable from that to tabletop. But the approach that we take, being tabletop, is maybe even more like a very high-end board game approach. If I always tell my clients, if you can play Monopoly, you can play our game, which we keep the name and the details of it very private because of its value, because of what it can do in its ability to train a family very rapidly and get them up to speed. But it's just like anything. If you don't use it, if you don't do it on a regular basis, you start to lose it. So our approach is to really make this kind of a new function in the family. And what I mean by that is we're creating a club, a society of high net worth families that are learning how to protect themselves, to do something they absolutely have to do. They're learning it in the easiest way possible. And they're also have the opportunity to do it collaboratively with other peers. And so we put on these events that are exclusive, high net worth, invite only type of events that are in really cool venues. They're black tie affairs. They're kind of like, I say, Casino Royale meets the Matrix in terms of environment. And those are our cyber war room events, and those are 8-hour events. The other part of what we do are on-sites in family homes, and that's a takeoff of what Anwar's been doing all these years, where he would go on site and he'd meet, again, oftentimes right of boom after bad things have happened, and everybody's somber and it's sad. It's like, this is so stressful, and it can last for months. So we want to help our client families get out ahead of that through gameplay, through quarterly gameplay. And so we put on these family game retreats where the families, oftentimes, especially in ultra high net worth families, they're getting together regularly to talk about family matters, business, family governance, and that sort of thing. And that's where our approach really fits in nicely. And they carve out some time to game as a family. We all go into airplane mode. There's a lot of focus, and we create an experience that's really unlike anything that they've ever experienced before. And that's this sort of dynamic approach to the threat, but also toning it down so it's not just this sort of scare the heck out of everybody in the room kind of thing, but an empowerment of each and every member of the family so that no one is a soft target. And coming out of that, there's really 3 parts to what we're doing there. We're helping them on the front end before that event. We're helping the family reduce their attack surface. So we do what we call intel reports and remove their personally identifiable information. Where we can, it's a process. It can take many months to reach out to hundreds of data brokers, and sometimes it's formal requests. Sometimes they're very quick about taking things offline. But the whole idea, again, reduce that attack surface for each and every member of the family enterprise. And once we've sort of reached, or at least gotten that part of the HardTarget process underway, that's when we go into gameplay mode. Everybody's developing their cyber street smarts and their instincts for picking up on things, for recognizing what's coming through their inbox, things that are coming through their phone, Internet of Things devices in their homes, and just the overall security posture of their family. That includes, things like not just their advisors, their family offices, or their RIAs, but housekeepers, and if they have chauffeurs or drivers, gardeners. All of this can be seen as potential entry points, and has been. There are cases where these folks have been compromised and given, money and such to be a conduit into a family and to breach the family. So it's not to, train everybody to be paranoid, but prepared, as we say. So that first part, reduce the attack surface. And the second part, harden everyone, make them develop help people develop more their cyber street smarts. And that third piece is governance, or what we call a cyber defense plan. And so that's usually, the last part of the event, where we're walking through with the family and everybody's really kind of buying into it. Now they're not going from zero to this plan. They've had this experience of playing the game, of understanding what the threats are and how to mitigate them. They're trying to win the game. It's a fun game. So all of that then bubbles up to this idea of governance and, well, how do we comport ourselves as a family digitally? What are the rules of engagement? What do we not do, and what are we allowed to do going forward? Because if they just go back to doing what they were doing before, then that footprint doesn't shrink. It just continues to grow, and the vulnerabilities continue to grow, and the attacks continue to grow. So there's real money involved, but I think that also the one thing that's often not totally understood unless you go through it is the emotional toll. So we're developing cyber resilience, but also, I think, emotional resilience in a lot of ways, that the family goes, okay, we understand this space. It's not overwhelming us anymore. We know what we're going to do if something were to happen. This is how we're going to live our lives. This is some smart things we're going to do from now on. And that develops, I think, a sense of security and emotional security, as well as a very practical level of, living their lives as a family. So we see it as a group effort. Let's become a hard target family. It's sort of a clarion call to, each member that they can get on board to living in this new way. And it's not restrictive as you might think. It's really just helping people understand what's out there and the things that they can do on a regular basis to prevent bad outcomes. So,
Mhm. Awesome. And what does it actually look like? Like, what is the family, what can they expect? Are they jumping on, they're playing games online? Are they, meeting up once a month? Help me understand what this looks like.
yeah, one way to think about it is almost like a cyber country club.
Okay.
And but instead of golf, we're playing on a regular quarterly. We don't do monthly just yet, but quarterly gameplay, and it's analog, so it's tabletop, and the game is played in groups of 5. It's it's developed in a way that's um, not exactly like the other war games that are out there. So we've taken a novel approach that we see really does work. So, but like we'll say, for an example, the in-home retreat. It's a 2.5-day retreat. The first day is um, really the gameplay. The second day is hardening their devices. So yeah, day one, playing the game with lots of breaks, and everybody's in airplane mode, and the family is really focused on the task at hand and the learnings and the fun at hand. There's a lot of interaction that happens um, in traditional tabletop gaming. And if you wonder about, well, is tabletop gaming like a thing? Well, what is Vegas? What are cards? What are dice, right? Like, it's some of the most engaging stuff in the world for a reason. We've just taken all of that in the game mechanics that I've studied and learned and done other things with, and infused that into this world of cyber. So that first day is just fun. It's playing games. Um, and there's a lot of interaction, a lot of laughs. Second day, everybody's getting out their devices, laptops, iPads, iPhones, not just Apple devices, but whatever they have, and doing the physical hardening of those devices. So we have what's called a hard target stack, and that is our best in class selections of technologies that are appropriate for this type of family, this type of use case. So they're not quite military grade, but they're very, very high level secure type technologies. So that's the sort of the tactical stuff. And those two things combined lead us into the third day, which is really a half day. And we're presenting a cyber defense plan that's specific to that family. So the family really sees it in front of them. This is what we're going to do. We all have this now new common language in our minds about it, and we know where we're going together as a family. And it's documented. People are signing off on it. And even in different branches of the family, there's a director that's kind of the lead, the cyber lead, if you will, for their branch of the family, so that there's some ongoing leadership within the family about it. And then with that 2.5-day model, that's replicated quarterly. So the family gets back together. The game is always evolving because the threats are always evolving. So we're constantly adding game cards and scenarios and things like that to the dynamics, so that we're keeping our clients up to date on the latest things that are out there happening to people just like them. So it's really designed to be an ongoing kind of living relationship. It's very relational. We're trying to also improve the dynamics, communication dynamics within the family, because especially after something happens, it can get very contentious, a lot of finger pointing and stuff like that. And again, we want to be left of all that, left of boom, so that we never even get there. The family is taken itself off the radar, and other families that have been more lackadaisical about their cybersecurity, they're going to be, unfortunately, the ones that the bad actors will go after. So we're working very hard to bring this message to as many families as we can. But there's some complexities, and most families don't want to go into the topic. So, but by making it a game, makes it a heck of a lot more accessible, right? When you're learning something in that context, as opposed to, well, here's a series of videos. We all need to buckle down and go through this sort of long process and try to remember and try to retain. And there's some stuff out there that will walk families through that, but we feel that the experience, the interaction, the mutual learning environment that we develop in our events is far superior to everybody just doing their own thing, yet again, on their device, when they have time, because oftentimes we won't make time for it. So, so that's how we do our in-home family game retreats. The war games are designed a little bit differently. As I mentioned earlier, they're shorter, kind of fun night out kind of events for oftentimes the patriarch and the matriarch, and also heads of household. So you can have, 4, 5, 6 family members at an event if you'd like, but they're designed to be like a really exclusive, amazing kind of date night, if you will, in a venue that you fly into. And they're tourable venues. They're not what you would expect. And that's the whole idea, is that each and every one is different, and an experience to be remembered.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So, can you share just some quick tips on how ultra high net worth families could protect themselves? Just to get them kind of warmed up for the services that you offer.
Yeah, I think there's some just basics that we all need to be using. First and foremost is a VPN, virtual private network. I won't, there's some good ones out there. Go read up on them. But anytime you're online, especially if you're somewhere public, but anytime you're online, you want to have an encrypted session for the browser you've opened or your email, because if you don't, then others can start to snoop if they know what they're doing, if they're adjacent to you or in the building, or have you. The other thing is, oftentimes in public places like Starbucks was sort of dealing with this for a while. I think it's less of an issue, but people setting up networks and sitting in Starbucks and letting people join their network, and then essentially cyber spying on them. while they literally look at them across the room and, smile or whatever. Like, it happens, and it
Oh,
probably still does happen. So you want to make sure you're on the official network, but usually even those there's all sorts of disclaimers. So they're saying, well, whatever happens to you on this network we're not liable for. So in that scenario, like if you're at a library or a university, they oftentimes have public Wi-Fi. Just, spend a few bucks, get a really good VPN. Number two would be a two-factor authentication. It's not bulletproof anymore. For a while there, it was. But we're seeing, even the bad actors get around that with SIM swaps and other stuff that I won't go into the details of, but it's better than not having it on. And so with anything you're a member of, anything where you've got to log in and, whether it's your cell phone account or your bank, especially bank, like turn that on and use the best practices that they have in place. They're there to help you. And, for the majority of scenarios, they're going to be, I think, pretty good. A password manager is also really important. It'll take a little bit of time, unless you're using one currently and you want to switch. But that first setup, whether you're using, again, I won't name product names, but spend the time to go through all of your logins and put them in a password manager, and stop using the browser to save your passwords, and especially your credit cards. Chrome, not the most secure browser. I think of the big ones, Safari is probably the best. But get your credit card and debit card numbers out of the browsers. It's an extra step, but it makes it super easy for someone that knows what they're doing to come in and scrape that data and really steal your card and steal your money. So those are the big three. As I said, there are literally dozens of ways that bad actors can get in, but start with those, and that will begin to mitigate a majority of the issues, and generally just be more, I guess, less trusting maybe of things, of emails, of attachments and links. A link can be the entry point to so many bad things. So you always want to click right on that link, see what the actual link is. Be very wary of anything coming over text. That's really the number one way I think that moving forward, the cyber criminals will get at all of us is through text, because things move so much more quickly there. And we're used to just, swiping and pressing on things and opening up whatever is sent to us sometimes. So lastly, I'll say this about, banks in general will never reach out and call you and email you if there's an issue. There's other ways that they will connect with you. A lot of the scams that we see happening, financial fraud and such, are proactive smishing and phishing ploys where people think they're talking to a bank representative or an investment manager representative, and it's not. And we get into the world of RIA stuff, and it gets really sophisticated very quickly. Business email compromise, man-in-the-middle attacks, things like that, where these bad guys can now act as your RIA and put themselves between you and your money and get their hands on your money very quickly. So, yeah, those are a few things that I'd make note of. We've got a lot of content that we're beginning to produce that will be more tutorial type stuff like this. But I think just like anything you want to know innately, if you want to go deep on it, reach out to us. And if it's not even just going deep, if you really want to develop that security posture that you're going to need to, I think, survive in the years ahead as things get more unstable around the world. Let's face it, it's just beginning to get a bit crazy out there with the markets and everything. And, we are in some way, shape, or form kind of have targets on our backs. So we need to do things to hide ourselves and to harden our families and ourselves against that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Always really motivated by the thing I'm working on now and taking all of that experience and pouring it into what I get to do. And I foresee this being, hard target. We have a big plan that to build a brand that will do a lot more for a lot more people in the years ahead. So I expect this will be, a 5 or 10 year project. We're only a year in,
Hmm.
and because we want to do some globally enriching things in the world of cybercrime and fighting things like cyber slavery and educating the elderly who are being targeted in nursing homes and just ugly, nasty, crazy stuff that upsets me enough to want to do something about it. And so back to that kid that, stood up to bullies and things, growing up, I get to do that in this world now, in the world. We're really fortunate to be teaming up with some amazing RAs and would love to um, connect with more if that's of interest to any of the listeners. It's something that we want to make sure is a right fit for everybody. So we do a little bit of um, kind of feeling each other out and making sure that culturally there's a good fit there. We're trying to do something fun, so we want to work with innovative RAs and companies that see this and recognize that cyber risk management is the future of their business too, because so many things can happen if they're breached. And they're the first phone call that an ultra high net worth, um, family member will call. Oftentimes, is their wealth manager, their trusted advisor. Why did this happen? How could this have happened on your watch? Oftentimes, is how it goes down, which can be a tough conversation for the RIA because there's so much complexity to it that um, it can be a really challenging scenario and hurt relationships and end relationships. So those are the things that we think about when we look at the family enterprise, that it includes these trusted advisors. So we recognize that long-standing relationship, we're going to have the same with our clients. And so we want to come alongside that and help protect them, help protect the RIA as well, so that everyone can, live with more peace in their lives.
Hmm. Awesome. Awesome. It's a beautiful mission, Bill.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Awesome. So my final question is an open-ended question, and if you've heard an episode before, you probably know that it's coming. It's what are you working towards?
With my work, I am working towards cyber literacy for all, is the most succinct way of saying that. So I've after many years doing a number of different things as a kind of a true serial entrepreneur, that's I've built businesses in a number of different industries. I can't imagine a more dynamic space to add value in and to work for the long term. And one of my agencies was on Wall Street, and um, I've been in health and fitness. I had a language-based learning company, had a couple of really fun agencies, app development and web development agencies over the years. But this space to me needs the most attention. Everything in this, it seems like there's a lot of hype around AI, but what underpins all of that is security. Even AI, even Chat GPT, if a nation state wanted to get their hands on it, could probably, I mean, I don't want to put any ideas in anybody's heads, but all of our tech sits on the layer of security. So to me, it's table stakes for modern life. And unless we're going to be Luddites and go live in the woods, we all need to have some level of understanding of that. So to me, it's one of the most dynamic industries. I love financial services. I think that's dynamic too. So kind of the marrying of these two really makes a lot of sense, wealth and cyber. So, but I don't just see it for the affluent. I see these vulnerabilities for, as I was saying, you know, retirees who are living on Social Security, are being um, fleeced out of their life savings, and that infuriates me, honestly.
Mhm.
Say that with a smile, but it's one of those things that, again, the most vulnerable sometimes seem to be the worse off. So as a literacy company, as a training and educational company, our product set will expand to not just serve high net worth, but all of us. And part of that mission also is in fighting something called cyber slavery, which is an insidious form of human trafficking. A lot of it's in Southeast Asia. But the long and the short of it is there's a reason there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of cyber criminals is because a fair number of them are being brought into that world through human trafficking, and they're being forced to do these things. They're being kept behind 20-foot walls with barbed wire and armed guards at the gates. And you can go on YouTube and watch some documentaries about it. It's pretty heartbreaking. All human trafficking is heartbreaking, but this in particular really aligns with what we do at HardTarget. We want to make those people hard targets as well. So we've got some scholarships and things we're doing with some international NGOs that will help those people that are coming out of that actually flip the script, call it the Flip the Scripts Scholarship, and learn how to become cyber professionals themselves. So some pretty cool things we're doing on a few levels, and I have to be careful. Sometimes I'm just way out ahead of my own vision, but that gives you a little bit of a sense of what we want to do and the impact that we want to have.
Hmm. Well, that's awesome. That is very inspirational, and I am excited to continue watching you to change the world for the better.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, and you're doing the same in your neck of the woods here with what you do with empowering RIAs to be the best professionals that they can be. So there's value in each and every one of our professions, and dignity in all of it. So thank you for having me on the show, and it's been an honor to join you today.
It's been my pleasure. Where can our audience find out more about you and HardTarget?
HardTarget.ai is our website, and you can also go to LinkedIn and reach out to me. I tend to connect with most people that reach out to me, and also follow us. Our company page on there is just search for HardTarget, and would love to connect with you, answer questions you may have, or set up a meeting. So
Awesome. Well, we'll be sure to link all of those in the show notes. Bill, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. This was awesome. You are doing some amazing stuff. Very excited to keep watching you do it. To all our listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in, and keep on growing out there, everybody. See